Today's show is sponsored by SCHIIT Audio. SCHIIT Audio designs and builds audio components made in the USA. Based in Valencia, California, their wide line of amps, DACs, and audio accessories fit any budget, starting at $49. For a full rundown of all their products, visit SCHIITdotCOM or stop by their retail store in Old Town Newhall, just north of Los Angeles. That's SCHIIT.com. The occasional podcast. Yes. Yeah. We did a little experiment. Well, rather, Bees did a little experiment. He went online, bought the absolute cheapest amplifier.
I did.
How was that experience like?
It was fine. You know, I just needed a little tiny amp to hide behind some books that kind of was by my desk so that I could switch from my Alexa to my vinyl. And because that's all I listen to are those two things. And it was fine. It did the job. It had very few and no bells and whistles.
You know what it did have, though, that I saw that made me shudder?
What?
Tone controls. Shame. Bong. Shame. Bong.
Yeah, so that's what you get for $35 on the internet. So some crackling and pops and a bunch of other stuff started to come in, and then sometimes it just wouldn't work, and so it's made its way to the recycling bin.
Oh,
yes.
Heartbreaking.
So what should I do now?
I got two suggestions for you.
Oh, please. Oh, so excited.
Well, they have this Alexa amp, and it's like an Audiophile 2-channel speaker amp built in with Alexa.
Oh, so it's the amp where I can just talk to it directly.
So obviously, guys, he's running, the hockey puck, the little Amazon Alexa line out into
the
his
greatest
stereo.
invention of all time.
Well, they got one of those also built in now to another amplifier, but I actually thought it was kind of expensive. I thought it was
how much was it?
Or $300,
and it's not even out yet, right?
And let's not forget the puck itself is $25 now.
Yeah, it's so great.
It's insanely cheap.
It's so great.
But they wanted $300 or $200 for the amp section. I'm like, that better be a kick butt amp section.
It must sound amazing. I can't wait to read the Audiohead review of that.
I'm sure I won't do it, but
I'll buy it, and then you come over and crap all over it. It'll be great.
No, I won't crap on it. There's a chance that for $300 you start to get into
it should be better, right?
Well, we haven't even heard it yet, so let's not go.
I know.
Let's not be naysayers.
But I just want my whole life to be like I say Alexa and things happen. My children get in the car and they start screaming, Alexa, play Baby Shark.
Oh my God, you know that one too?
Who doesn't?
I heard this cable. I don't know what it was. This Baby Shark song. One of my friends played it for me, and I was like, "Dude, this song is. I need to write children's songs." Is what I was thinking.
Pure crack. That and Elsa, Frozen. Those are it's pure crack cocaine mainlined into 2 to 4-year-old kids.
But you know what we'll do? We'll swap that out for the occasional podcast in house. Rega Brio R.
I am so excited.
Which, by the way, if it has a really heavy load, it's only got 50 watts, not an amp for every situation.
Can it handle the Alexa puck?
I think it can handle the front end. But we'll just kind of see how it goes. We'll put it in there, and we'll let Bees experiment with the Rigobray R. They make good stuff. Let me say this. The built-in phono stage is pretty good as a freebie throw in there. So we'll check the whole thing out. And then Bees will come back with his observations, how it fares against a $30 Amazon purchase on a whim. So that'll be fun. That'll be a little fun thing.
So there you go. Stay tuned.
There's a fair amount of the British sound lovers out there. There's a couple of companies, a couple of loudspeaker brands. They got an interesting thing going on. So we'll just give you a sprinkling of it.
Fantastic.
And see if you can tell. Bees, did I ever tell you I have the most amazing optometrist in the world?
No, I didn't even know. You have an optometrist?
Yeah. I have 20/10 with my contacts in.
Hey-o.
But she told me something really interesting the other day because she asked me, what do you do? And I was like, oh, this audio stuff. And she was really interested because of how there's similarities between that and vision. You want all the beams to reach the sound waves to hit your ear at the same time for a cohesive image. And coincidentally, same thing with your eye. You want all the light rays to hit it very succinctly for a very clear image. more literally an image in that sense.
True.
Anyway, the coolest thing about her, she told me this story that I was like, I got to share this with the guys. So you know how pirates have patches?
Yeah, I do. Yes.
They have eye patches. She was pontificating that there might have been a reason beyond just an eyeball being plucked out of your skull for having one.
Okay.
And that if you were a marauder and you were wearing an eye patch, if you jumped on board a ship that you were attacking, if you removed the eye patch quickly, you would have adjusted that eye for complete darkness, and you'd have an advantage over the people you were attacking in darkness.
Interesting.
So it's like a little spy tool because you flip it up, and your eye has, it has a couple of extra seconds of pure adjustment to the dark before the people you're attacking, because they obviously their eyes are adjusted to whatever ambient light's there. Who do we have on the show today, Mr. Bees?
Oh, the legendary Mr. Weisfeld.
Matt, he goes by Matt. We're going to talk
Matty Weisfeld.
We're going to talk about turntables.
Oh,
he has a very interesting family story for the VPI brand turntables. They've been around for a while. His dad started the business, and he
so it's in the family.
Over.
It's in the family blood.
Business, yeah.
That's very cool.
So I'm excited to have you guys check that out. It's going to be a great interview, and maybe we should, roll it. So here we are. I'm so excited to have you on because you're one of the they use this term in the industry, young guns. I think it's the ironic thing about the young guns panels is that everybody there is not actually.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean,
you're always the youngest one.
Well, but the first time I did that, I sat there and I looked around and I'm just like, what the hell is the scale of young gun? Like, it's still breathing. It's like he's got a pulse. Put him on the stage.
Get him up there. Prop him up with a little thing.
Just.
But a true young gun.
I'll take that.
Yeah. VPI Industries. They make wonderful turntables. Just turntables, right?
Yeah, we do turntables. We've been dabbling into phono stages and cleaning machines. So, but for the most part, our focus, and I've been approached about doing speakers and amplifiers and things like that. And screw that. I think that creates so much complication. And I like having the focus of being the turntable guy.
And it's a powerful brand. I feel like you guys have done it, and your father before you has done an excellent job of building this brand. When you have a wide range of tables, and some of them get very up there on the high end scale of things, but yet the brand is a solid representation, and you need that when you're saying, hey, fork over $10,000. There has to be that thing.
But also, though, at that price range, what I think is important and what we try to convey is the fact that it's an investment that you don't have to worry about, in the sense of, 10 years later, crap, my rim drive broke. What do I do? We've actually gotten a lot of customers who had other super tables that then were kind of left holding the bag when they either just, I love when people say, "We're sorry, sir, that's a legacy product." It's like, what the heck does that mean? Legacy product. That means you should totally be supporting me right now. So whereas like we try to instill that idea of, if you do drop the 10, 20, even 40,000 now that we're in that echelon, that in 10, 20 years from now, you'll still be able to get any replacement parts. We've got customers who bought the original HW19 from 40 years ago who are just bringing it now and upgrading their table. We're able to put our Prime Scout platter, we didn't even make a tone arm back then, and now we can put our tone arm on there. So just the idea of you're not going to be stuck even if you are dropping that kind of cash.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. I do. Obviously, the other side of that is what you mentioned, service. Right? People don't want to know that there's something behind this, and let's be honest, people who spend a lot of money like service. That's the part of the bag of it also. But before we get into all that, let's take a little journey down memory lane, because you are from, where are you from originally?
Oh, I was originally born in New York.
Oh, yeah.
So let's go back to the days when I was first conceived, when I was a twinkle in my mom and dad's eye, and it's just like, let's make this fantastic baby. Oh, jeez. Oh, my God, that's actually my dad, but I'm going to ignore him.
I hope he doesn't listen to the podcast.
I don't think he'll know how to get on a podcast. Are you kidding me? If it's not on a turntable, he'll be in trouble.
Well, you're probably in that mindset because you just had a new child, didn't you?
Yes, I did. Little baby Shyla. And
so
we went for a cool name because half Asian, half little Jewish baby. You know, we had to make sure we got this right.
That's awesome. So do you have a funny story from when you were a child? Like do you have the classic family story?
Oh man, I mean, classic family stories or a classic family VPI I destroyed stuff stories.
Oh really?
Like here's a funny story. Oh, actually no, one that is directly related. Apparently, I used to when my guy Leo, who still works for me, and my dad, would they be working on the HW19, I'd jump on the table. I'm about like 4 or 5 years old, and I would yell, "I'm helping Leo! I'm helping Leo!" And I would run across the table, knocking over everything, including apparently one time I did destroy one of the veneer chassis by knocking it over. And supposedly after I knocked it over, I picked up a wrench and like, here's your wrench or whatever. I probably didn't even say wrench. I was like, here you go. And it's like, stupid kid.
Has she been down to the offices yet?
Oh yeah, actually she's only 7 weeks old, and I really thought about bringing her here, which would have been terrible parenting had I done that. I mean, I saw Alan Jones, who's feeling under the weather. I've already seen him a couple of times, and I'm like, yeah, little Shiloh would be as sick as a dog right now.
Her immune system would be like ironclad by the time she hit one.
Oh my God. But we've been taking her to the factory Jane's my office manager and my wife, and she's just insanely good at her job. And people are like, how do you work with your wife?
Yeah.
I love it. Actually, that's a whole other thing. But with Shiloh, the other day, we were talking about the anniversary turntable. I've got direct drive motors and all this stuff all over the table. Shyla starts to cry. I pick her up. I'm holding her. I think I posted this picture on Facebook. And I'm just standing there holding her. She's looking at me like, hey, Dad. And I'm like, I got this awesome little teddy bear. And I just kept on going about the table. So... But
I'm going to just interject here and say you do Facebook quite well. Your stuff is entertaining, but I saw this photo I swear I'm not a cruel person, people, but he had this photo was a shot of a well wrapped, VPI box, and the caption was, tell what the caption said.
Okay, well this started because people are asking me if I brought Shiloh with me, so I've got. A platter box, Avenger reference drive for one of the rooms, and and I'm holding it, and like, oh, what's that? Like, oh, well, it's my baby, and I was like, yeah, Shiloh's in the box, and some guy threw me a look like, are you kidding me? And like, dude, I'm kidding. I wouldn't actually put my kid in a box without breathing holes. But so I took the picture, put it on, and I said, good news, everybody. Shiloh made it fine. She's alive. Yeah.
Oh,
I have fun with social media. And going back to like the evolution of all of this stuff, we started out in New York. My dad actually, ironically, both myself and my mom and dad had nothing to do with this industry per se. My dad was actually an electrical engineer and sheet metal mechanic. My mom was an English teacher and speech pathologist. So nothing to do with this stuff. They couldn't afford any of this stuff, any of the audio gear and everything. They pined over it. And my dad was doing duct work in audio breakthroughs in Seacliff, wherever Harry Pearson lives. Because incidentally, my dad meets Harry Pearson. They have a whole conversation. And long story short, Dad makes a cleaning machine from his inspiration from Harry Pearson. Pearson likes it. He reviews it. And unbeknownst to my dad, because he's just the hobbyist guy doing stuff, and the review comes up, and the story is how Dad comes home, and good news, bad news. What's the good news? You got an order for those thingies that you make. It's like, well, what's the bad news? It's for 500. Get working. Now, the story changes 100, 500, whatever, but...
1 million units.
Yes, 1 million, 1 million. And so then eventually my dad left his job. Actually, his boss was like, what are you doing screwing out with this stuff? Go make your fucking turntables. Yeah. So he went and did that. And with my mom, she kind of became his office manager accidentally and eventually left teaching. And so it's kind of cool that Jane and I have kind of walked in their footsteps where, well, in my case, I was the teacher. And then went forward with taking over the company, and then Jane became my office manager. So it's like we always have a Mrs. Weisfeld in the office.
That's nice. That's a nice story. And I like to hear stories like that because, unfortunately, I think a lot of times when the families work together, there are many stories that are beautiful like that one, but the only ones you hear about are the ones that are like, oh, this horrible thing happened, and
yeah. Well, everybody told me that. They're just like, oh, you're about to ruin your relationship. And, well, a quick story with that. When I first started dating Jane, and again, she's from China, and when I met her, her English was crap. Like, I don't even know. Our first date, I remember we were walking down this hill, and I'm just like, I have no clue what she's saying, but I just want to listen to it forever. So it was like, it was weird, hilarious. But so early days, before she's working for me, she's over my apartment. I come home. I had a bad day. It was a bad VPI day, and I was in a foul mood. And I walk in, and she knew I was upset. I couldn't communicate it, and we end up having our first altercation. I'll call it altercation because a fight sounds so terrible. Yeah. And so that all happens, and I get it all fixed. I'm just like, no, I'm not mad at you. I'm just mad. Okay, cool. Fast forward 1 year later. Now Jane's working for me. And we're driving home, and ironically, the thing that I was flipping out about was very similar to the same thing from the year before. And so I'm just like, motherfucking this, goddamn, blah, 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 blah. And Jane starts laughing. I'm like, what are you laughing about? And she's just like, because I understand everything you're talking about, and I'm just as pissed off as you. Yeah. And then I start laughing. They're like, oh, I could share my frustration with somebody. Because I think it's kind of... not sad, but you kind of miss out, I think, like thinking back to previous relationships where I come home, vent about my day, and it's just like, that's nice, dear. You want,
I think there's an unspoken word with some couples too that they try to avoid the work subject altogether because, or save it for the therapist if you really want someone to listen. So your dad's doing he gets the thing for the records.
Yeah.
He's doing a million order record.
A million.
Clear. But then, so he's slowly segued the company into turntables?
Well, what happened next, and this is actually going to tie into our anniversary table later on, which, why not? We could talk about that later, too. So then after that, Dad just made isolation bases, and then Denon approached him. And ironically... last year, I met the rep who is now retired, but the guy who actually brokered all this like 30 years ago. So that was a cool moment for me. But they loved his work. And then Denon goes to my dad, like, hey, this cute little VPI company, you want to make isolation bases for us? And my dad's first thought is, wow, way to set the bar high over here. It's just like, really? Me? But he ends up doing it. And he starts with the isolation bases. And then after he did that, he's like, well, and that's for their direct drive Denon motor. And then he's like, well, I figured out the isolation base. And then I think Denon was pulling away from whatever they were doing. Dad's like, well, now I just have to make the bladder spin. So he uses his isolation for what would eventually be the HW19. I believe the base for Denon was the HW9.
Okay.
Of course, nobody remembers HW1 through, it's just, the 16 was the cleaning machine. But so he does the HW19. And I really feel like his model of HW19 through Mark 1, 2, 3, 4 was him learning. But with every time he learned how to improve it, he made sure it was backwards compatible. And if you owned a 19 Mark II, you could upgrade it to a 3 and a 4 and whatever it might be. So the Denon thing stepped it up to him doing the turntables. Then once they left, he went all out. Then he started to become a real company, having dealers and people like, selling. I found some of like the old paperwork of my parents with their reps and people running all over. Pictures of my mom and dad at CES looking hilarious in their awful hair and clothing. Just like, come on, Mom, what were you thinking? But it's...
The 80s were a heck of a time. Let me tell you, shoulder pads. I was like, I remember asking my mother, what is this in your shoulder? She's like, shoulder pads. I'm like, why? She's like, oh, it makes the waist look smaller or something like that. It was, And
my dad had a fro like you would not believe. It was just like, what's going on there?
Early Dylan, man. It was cool.
So he started, initially my dad used, because we didn't make a tone arm yet, and he used like Rega tone arms, Jelco. Oh my God, Souther. That's what it was. The Souther tone arm. A whole bunch of Graham tone arms as he went on to the higher end. Then he got that push to do the TNT, which was his first avenue into making high-end products.
Okay.
So then he did that. But then he was doing a little too well where he wasn't able to get the tone arms fast enough. Now, essentially, somebody had said, well, if you don't like the production time, to be politically correct, I won't say who, but it's like, if you don't like it, then make your own fucking tone arm.
Yeah.
And so that's what my dad did, which kind of segues into the evolution of the JMW tone arm. My brother is the one who really was the guy for VPI. My brother would skip school and go to the factory to build HW19s and cleaning machines, and my mom would be like, no, you gotta go back to school. And he was helping my dad with designing what would have originally was called the TNA, the new arm. My dad was terrible on names.
Well, because TNA means, that acronym has other meanings.
Oh yeah. Maybe not the best for oh man. But like the TNT, our old high-end table, was the new turntable.
Yeah.
HW was Harry Weisfeld's product number 2, whatever. So the TNA was in the prototype phase, and then unfortunately my brother was killed in a car accident. Jeez, I feel so special today, but let's ignore that person too. So then from there, my dad, after my brother had died, my dad really buckled down, finished the tone arm in his memory, which then eventually making it the JMW tone arm, since John had a major influence on the design. I like to think, had John lived and was here, that would have been like the first product together and kind of like an entry for my brother into this as a bigger role, where like I had the prime turntable, my brother would have been the tone arm guy.
Yeah.
So the tone arm was the next evolution for us to step up our game. And then we started putting our arm on all of our tables. Since my dad felt, okay, this is a real arm. This is a legitimate arm. We have awards and reviews. We don't need other people's tone arms. So then that happened. And then moving forward, we went from the HW19 to the TNT, then to the Aries. The Aries was the first, which is named after me. I'm the Aries in the family.
Oh, your sign?
Oh yeah. So it kind of explains some things.
I'm not that familiar with the zodiac. What is Aries? What are they known for?
Aries is a little more crazy, a passionate person, leadership.
There you go.
So it's actually Harry Pearson sent me this long. He was really into astrology, and he sent me this long thing that was like 6 pages long about me and becoming. I should really post that up someday.
You should.
Yeah, so that was pretty cool. But yeah, so the Aries table was the first complete VPI product where we had our tone arm, our platter, and then it led to him shrinking it down to eventually the Scout.
Okay.
Which would lead to the discontinuation of the HW19 as we're growing as a company, because the Scout was much easier to put together, a little more thought out, and that's when we were just getting to a different market of just higher volume and getting out to a different audience. Let's see what happened after that. And then after that, we
what price point was that?
That was when it first came out. It was $1,800.
Okay.
But we're talking about, I want to say 20 years ago, in that ballpark. And that was considered our entry level table. We got lots of fantastic reviews with it, and it was a high end flavor for entry level, which is ironic because that's essentially what I'm doing now with our current models. And then they just continued moving forward with perfecting the line, my mom and dad, and then led to our anniversary, our 20th anniversary, or 30th. No, it was 30th. I'm sorry. So our 30th anniversary. So many anniversaries. So our 30th anniversary is...
So many anniversaries. Well, I can't. So many anniversaries. Like I have one a year with my wife. It's so.
But I don't. I've got 3. Come on, you've seen how many times I married my wife. Yeah, I mean, I married her once legally, married her once in China, then married her once again. A big celebration. Figure that way. If she ever wants to divorce me, very difficult.
So
God, ridiculous.
So, you guys, you have the new turntable line. It's growing. It's growing. The business is growing. What kind of happened next?
So we go through all that stuff. Mom unfortunately dies from pancreatic cancer, and I decide that I need to continue this. And so going forward, my dad and I, we actually initially were like fighting like animals, because Dad was ready to call it after the fight with cancer and all this time in with the company, and I really didn't have the prerequisites for being a business owner here. I was a high school technology, web design, animation, and 3D modeling teacher, which ironically was everything I needed to know. And I applied a lot of that, the idea of making sure everybody understands what is happening, what the content is, minimizing how much content there is. In our case, my dad had 28 products.
Yeah.
That's mental. Yeah. Now, on one hand, every product had a specific customer, but it's from the larger scale, you have so many options, you get confused, say, screw it, I'm out. So we minimized the brand to have a good, better, best situation. So then that way, and within our line, we've got our entry-level line of the Cliffwood series, starting with our $900 product, all in one. You take it out and you're good to go. Then at what's my other table? The Player. Then the Player at $1,500. And again, there's having enough of a price difference with each thing that there isn't that, should I get this one with that? But oh man, and then having the buyer's remorse of, oh, I really wish I got that other one. It was only $100 more. And then after the Cliffwood series, then brings us to our Prime series. The Prime was my first table. And I felt like I had to do it to A, reboot the line, and B, show everyone I'm not going to just go in on my dad's coattails. Because, a lot of people thought I was going to screw this whole thing up, including myself. So, so then with that, we changed the identity of going, well, I didn't expect the Prime to be a success. It was my first table. I purposely kept my dad out of it.
And how were the reviews? How did the feedback come from that?
We couldn't get reviews for a year because we couldn't spare any.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
What's the price point? Let's
4,000.
So is this 4,000?
Yes. Okay. So and actually the backtrack, at 2,200 is the Prime Scout. Then at 4,000 is the Prime. But the Prime came before all that other stuff. Then after the Prime is the Prime Signature at 6,000. So again, good, better, best in the Prime series.
Yeah.
So with the Prime, it was kind of just the best of what my dad had done in the past 30 years. I took the platter from the classic turntable, the VTA bass from the TNT, the JMW tone arm just from the JMW, but in the 3D printed spin, the outbound motor from the Aries, and the feet have a similar isolation like the HW19. So it was just taking the best aspects of VPI, tying it together in a bang for the buck situation where you have a $4,000 flavor that gives you a lot more sound. And when we first showed it, Michael Fremmer, he came in, saw it, and was like, "Oh, is this your new $8,000 table?" I'm like, "Nice, half that price, but we hope it sounds like that."
Yeah.
And I've always liked that, the idea of it looking like one thing, or like looking well above its price point, and then have that shock value of, really? And it's made here in America? Really?
Yeah. I think you can't overlook the fact that sometimes aesthetics do matter. I know we all like to tell ourselves, hey, it's all about the sound. But one of the expressions, people have said to me in the process of doing these podcasts is it's jewelry. It's like audiophile jewelry, and you spend a lot of money on jewelry, and you spend a lot of money on audio, so it only makes sense that it should look good in the same kind of turn. So does that bring us up to the current line now? Is that where we're at?
So that was the Prime itself, and then after we did all that, we cleaned up our mid-range. So we did the Prime, it all worked out. And initially, when I launched that, I only prepared to make 50 because I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna have to struggle. Who's gonna want my table? No background, no nothing. And then we ended up having right out of the gate pre-orders for 250. So, which led to us struggling to get reviews because I couldn't spare any, and it was and that led to us in just getting more involved with lean manufacturing, changing our process, re-examining the whole line of having like parts, consistency, and then volume in the components. But then I wanted to revamp the higher end, But I had no clue what to do about that. In the sense of our reference line, this I thought was so cool because I'm like, Dad, let's do something different. Dad was still in his I want to retire, I don't know what I'm doing phase. We're cleaning out the warehouse, and I find this box that's just caked with dust, and it just says the Tripod Project. I'm like, what the hell is this? I open it up, and it is this real bastardized-looking tripod sandwich chassis with this crazy thick platter that I didn't even understand. I pull it out. I'm like, Dad, what the hell is this? He's like, oh, yeah, I forgot about that. I started that. Apparently, he started working on it for our 30th anniversary. Got distracted and just like, squirrel. And instead, he made the classic and completely forgot about the Tripod Project. My dad, great with these freaking names over here. So
I'm not gonna lie, they kind of feel like they have sexual undertones to them, but he didn't mean that.
I would be surprised, but that's another conversation. And, so I pull it out, and we're about to have a dealer training thing. It's right before Rocky Mountain. So we check it all out. And I'm like, this is interesting. Let's put it in the corner for our next dealer training just to get feedback. So we do it. We clean it up. We put a platter on there. We put a 12-inch 3D arm on there, and we put it in the corner. And my dealers come in, and one of them, Bob Satin with Bob's Devices, like, I want that. Like, okay, well, good. Well, that's exactly what we're going to talk about. Like, no, I need that to ship in time for Rocky Mountain. I need to show this. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. The first showing, if you guys go back online and see the show reports of that was literally a bag of parts thrown together quickly for Bob Satin. And the response was ridiculous. And that's when we realized, wait, this is what the industry needs, a high-end sandbox. Because the Avenger, you start at 10,000, then you can go to 15,000, then 20,000. Or say, screw it, I'm going to go a totally different direction, but use it as a base. Because you can mount anyone's tone arm, any length, any model. The suspension can be changed. It's very easy to, whether you use our suspension or want to do like still point or swordfish or whatever, you can change how it's run in the sense of being belt drive, rim drive, then magnetic rim drive. And because of the diameter, you can also put a periphery ring on and just have it where you, as the high-end audiophile, can say, you know what? I really love VPI's tables, but I don't like that unipivot. Or I hate rim drive. I'm going to do belt drive because this is all subjective. You know, I see some of these guys that will be like, you must use my tone arm or you're a moron. And I'm like, no, you're the moron. You are literally ruining this industry. Stop it.
There are quite a few people, I think, that are involved that are so binary in their belief system with these things. There's no gray area. I'm like, guys, there are things that sound bad. Yeah. And there are things that sound really good. But there's this massive gray area where it's about the tweaks, the beauty of small adjustments and moving the gray area forward, I think, is part of the fun of the hobby.
Yeah, I mean, that's why we actually recently made a gimbal tone arm. So we have our Fat Boy tone arm. And this brings us current to the production line. And so we made the Fat Boy, and that was, again, my dad with the naming. It was supposed to be...
I'm sorry. It's really I'm starting to see a trend here.
Oh, completely. No, it gets worse. This is going to be like the drop the mic moment because when we were figuring out the unipivot versus the gimbal, it's like, okay, this could be the Fat Boy, and we'll call the gimbal the Chubby. Like, no, we are not calling it the Chubby.
Oh, man, I love the Chubby. I wish it was called the Chubby.
No, right? That would not have played over too well over in England.
The next one is called the Chode.
The Chode. Yes. I actually, back in my college days, we made our own beer. My friends and I went to this brewery, made the beer, like, what do we call it? And it was called the Angry Chode. And it was delicious.
God, the Angry Chode.
We went there.
For all your... I used to work in advertising. We do a similar thing. We'd have like a beer competition, and they had one. This is right in like from a shout back to the 80s. It was called... it was a Karate Kid themed beer called Sweep the Lager. Oh, it was so good. Sweep the Lager.
Oh my God, that's amazing. But yeah, so the Fat Boy. So my 3D printers, and actually touching upon what you said about the jewelry, man, I feel like such an asshole sometimes with my suppliers and the printers because I like reject the smallest stuff just because, and with like the 3D printing to get to that level, just like no, think of this as jewelry. And
Yeah.
that concept of it's like this is going in someone's home, and it's a centerpiece, and you have to feel proud of it. Not that like, so my 3D printers, they've got all these different SKUs. So this was supposed to be the Titan tone arm, and just for prototyping though, they needed to call it something. It was thicker, so it was just like, okay, the Fat Boy. Like, okay, cool. My dad finds out that that's what the prototype name is. We're doing an event that has nothing to do with the Fat Boy. And this actually led to so much trouble for me because I like to release things in an appropriate time.
Yeah.
And we have it there. We're not going to talk about it. Actually, this press event was about the Prime Signature and us completing the circle of Prime Scout, Prime Signature. Out of nowhere, my dad whips out the tone arm that is just the prototype. Say, this is the Fat Boy, everyone. We're going to release it really soon. Like, oh my God, stop it. We are not ready. We're this. And just like that, all the press like, okay, Fat Boy.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just like, and by the next day,
Bring it all down. Pens are
oh,
swirling.
man, everywhere. Like I start seeing on all these blogs and everything. I'm just like, okay, you got your wish, Dad. It's the
called
Fat Boy.
So it's the marketing spiel to say, good, better, best. And that seems so intuitive for a consumer. But really, with this engineer-focused kind of market that in the audiophiles are, it is a difficult thing to, when they see the numbers, the sales numbers, and the inspiration they see in the back, it is actually somewhat rare for some people to have something so concise. And for have somebody like you to come in and bring that leverage of knowledge to it, even though it seems simple to the consumer, it is a real problem with a lot of stuff where in the inspiration that fuels the back end doesn't exactly match up with what should be happening on the consumer-facing side of things.
Well, to add a little more to it, really, the thing I like to say even more so is I like head and shoulders differences. I hate that remorse feeling because, and also, I was a teacher. I look at it as, if I can't afford that on a teacher's salary, or rather, will I be happy as a consumer saving up my teacher's salary or whatever salary it might be? Because, whether you get a good salary, bad salary, whatever, it's money. It's something going towards something else. And I like the idea of you feeling proud and confident that, okay, I just went from a Prime Scout to a Prime, and that was a head and shoulders difference. I'm okay with spending the additional money for that. That's one of the reasons that we went away from the Classic Signature, because the Classic Signature, which was $6,000, we discontinued a whole line, the 30th anniversary. That was kind of recently. And one of the problems was the Prime was so good that the Classic Signature was better, but we couldn't justify it being $2,000 better.
Solid.
And now with the Prime Signature, it blows away. Within reason, in the sense of the progression of getting a better aspect of what you already have.
Well, I just like the idea that you're producing stuff where the value proposition it's not smoke and mirrors. Or look at the weird thing that's kind of happened in headphones is that you ask people, well, what's I won't say who. I asked someone, why'd you price the headphone at X amount of dollars? They said, well, we were making this headphone at this level, and we saw that people were selling the cable.
Yep. Yeah.
The cable was selling for a quarter of the price, so I just extrapolated the formula saying, if you're going to make a cable for a quarter of the price, we're going to make the headphone X now. And it's just not like what you're kind of saying is we're looking for a clear value proposition to our consumers where we want to reward them for their money spent, the more money they spend, but we're not arbitrarily throwing out things because we can.
Well, that happened with us with the Rosewood. When we did our Rosewood table, so we have the Prime Signature, but it's available in Rosewood for an upcharge. And when we did it, so the Prime Signature is $6,000. And we did the whole analysis, and we came down to it being $6,800, so an $800 upcharge. And one of my dealers, who will remain nameless, actually, I don't think he's one of my dealers anymore, so I think we're good. But regardless, it's they were like, oh, why are you doing that? You could totally get away with $8,000. And just like, screw you. No, my mom was all about poems and inspirational stuff, and one of the ones she really liked and shared with me when I was younger, which I'm going to have to share with my daughter, is The Man in the Looking Glass. Yeah. How the whole idea of how everybody looks at you this and that, everything. At the end of the day, you can't lie to the guy in the looking glass, and things like that, where it's like, but you can get away with $8,000. It's like, but how do you live with yourself? How do you And to be perfectly honest, a lot of this product, our 3D arm, when we first did it, it was very expensive. And we put it out there at the appropriate price. And as we got better, we reduced the price because it's fair. You know,
for those guys, I just want to ask you this. For those people looking in, can you just tell people when a turntable costs in excess of $10,000 and they say, how can it cost that much? Without going into revealing any trade secrets or anything, what makes a turntable cost $10,000?
Well, the first thing is the volume, because you look at a prime, and that's actually what got our price down and everything, because I just immediately committed to 2,000 right out of the gate. We were making 2,000 platters to the point where my dad thought I went nuts. He was just like, you better be right. And he was told 100% in the sense that if we had done that and then all of a sudden like Michael Fremer comes out next week saying, I'm a fraud, I want digital and everything else, then like, oh, forget it. I would have eaten a gun. But it was like, but kidding aside with it. So the first thing is the volume. So you have these higher end products, but a lot of it is BS from a manufacturing standpoint. What it's supposed to be, at least I think it is, you take the bill of material, the final cost of every component, part, and everything. Then you factor in the projection of what's going on in the world. For example, this year, a lot of companies had to raise their price. Now, because things went up. Aluminum, steel, and acrylic are up like crazy. Now, before it went up, I saw that. I saw it was starting to happen. So we put in all of our 2018 and arguably 19 commitments in before any price hikes went up. So there's that factor of factoring in if this is going to be a $10,000 table, can it bear when the price goes up and down? So you have to have a little bit of, like what we do is we put a little flexibility in so that if all of a sudden our supply price goes crazy high, then, okay, we can bear it right now. And then, hey, if things go a little bit better, then it just prepares us for the next time it goes up. Actually, our arm lifters, we recently started making them here in America. The exchange rate, because we used to get those in Japan, there was one time, for the first time I ordered arm lifters, it was supposed to be a $20,000 bill to get the arm lifters. We're talking a lot of arm lifters. Yeah. So my dad prepared me for that. My first time, I go to the bank, I do it. And I'm like, Dad, it was only $15,000 this time. What happened? What do I do? Order more right now. Because at that specific moment, and I'm like, oh, wow. Sure enough, next time we did it, it was higher. So that formula, and the second time, instead of being 20, it was like 25,000. So there's that factor of a $10,000 table of accounting for that. So you have the bill of material of what it costs. That's all about the bill of material. Yeah. But with a bit of flexibility for up and down, then you have the time that's put into it. Because a table like that, you're not having that $10 an hour part-time guy doing it. You know, it's then you have those actual engineers and craftsmen. A venture on up, the only guys that do that are like my guy Leo, who's been with me for 40 years.
Is it one dude?
Yeah,
or two dudes? It's a guy.
There's always there's redundancies, just because and I kind of think that's a bit of a fault of some companies where there's always just that one guy, and that one guy. If something happens to him, your whole company and business model collapses. So in my case here, like I've got Leo, who is my one guy being the grand poobah. Mm-hmm. But if Leo suddenly disappears, I've got two other guys who can step in and do it.
Yeah, I mean, I get that, but I mean, I meant it only in a sense that there's a sense of craftsmanship to it, and a sense that this guy who's good at this thing, he touches or looks after every aspect of this one thing, and it's not a chain of people just putting crap together, you know what I mean? So there's just like a higher end of craftsmanship to the entire production. So, but I'm kind of taking away from this, and correct me if I'm wrong here, is that the materials are a high cost.
Yeah, the material, the time, the factoring in of warranty, because there's a lot of companies that get in trouble after the fact, because you have to account for when something goes wrong, and whether it's the company's fault or the customer's fault. Because a lot of times there's warranty cases that if you really look at it, it's like, oh, that's really not our fault. The customer kind of screwed it. But now what kind of company do you want to be? I'm like, no, sir, that's on you. Forget you. Or do you want to take care of them?
So you hear that, guys? If you want lower prices, don't complain so much.
Exactly. But no, it accounts for the fact that, like, that warranty is covered, that everything is covered, that it's just a simple, easy. Oh, that happened. No worries. We can send you another one. And then the packaging. People forget about the packaging.
So I was just going to comment though, and I've said this in previous podcasts, but when I ask people, what's the craziest thing that an audiophile has ever like complained about or done? Surprisingly enough, the one that gets a lot of people is audiophiles, different from other kind of consumers, complain about packaging. Mm-hmm. Have you ever had a consumer get their stuff and complain about the packaging?
We used to. I totally changed our packaging to the point where we did like engineering drawings and like 3D like extension things, because a lot of audiophile packaging, and I shouldn't say all because I don't know all the companies, but it's not exactly user friendly. Mm-hmm. It's made to be safe to get there, but then that's it. Yeah. And we used to be like that. If you look back at the old VPI product, the packaging is green. I don't know why. I do know why. Apparently, it's like environmental friendly stuff, but apparently you get the environmental friendly stuff in different colors. But so it was this green packaging and this brown, disgusting looking. It was just strange all around. It was like Tetris. It was playing Tetris. And what really got me was my early days of going to shows. The table would come out, I would take it out, get them all set, then breakdown day would happen. And here I am. I wasn't running the company yet, but I'm clearly a key figure in the company, and I couldn't package my own damn table. It was pathetic. And one of the number one phone calls we'd get from customers is, "Oh, I want to box this up. How do I do it?"
A reusable package.
Yes, because
that's unusual.
Yeah.
I get why they want it, but it's not an aspect I think a lot of other people have to worry about. But it totally makes sense in this scenario.
Yeah, that's true, because like you have your computer. You get a computer, you throw away that box immediately, or once you know you're going to keep it. But that's why in recent years we redid all of our packaging, changed to this black uniform packaging, all die cut, all layered, and then now we actually provide the cut out layering just so they can do it the right way. And it makes sense just because from going back to the warranty, let's say that and we've had this happen a lot, where a customer will have an issue with their wire, their cat takes it out or something like that, and then they go to send it out. Now, we always tell customers, either take off your cartridge or make sure the guard's on there or something like that. So many times we get the arm back, there's the cartridge, no guard, and that $5,000 stylus is gone. So things like that are always so much fun.
Who was it? Oh, I think it was somebody who bought a needle and it was like just rattling around in the box, and they were like so furious. Like,
we've had that.
That's very interesting. Yeah, and this is very common, and something I don't think a lot of consumers actually think about is the warranty is such a big deal to a company on the back end. It's like, hey, it's just something I think a lot of guys take for granted, but a huge expense when you're looking at the grand scheme of things.
But going back to the materials, for example, like our periphery ring, for example, is $1,000. What you also have to consider is that it's like $1,000 for a ring. Are you kidding me? No, you're paying for what's lost, because you've got with supplies, you've got different stock pellets, for example. Well, pellet may not be the right word, but so it's got to be this stock piece. And when that gets machined out, that centerpiece is gone. Can't get reused, can't get anything. So theoretically, the customer is paying for what they lost that can't be reused or anything. Then the quality control aspect of it. Yeah. Because that periphery ring, if that isn't perfectly straight, and if there's any level of magnetism, goes in the garbage. Can't be used. But that's already been, so it's kind of like an averaging out of what it takes to get that piece out there. Other components like steel, doing a solid piece of steel, that beats the crap out of the machine shop's machines. So if, like, on our reference tables, the posts are all stainless steel. So machining that stainless steel post is a lot more costly than machining out a piece of aluminum. It's aluminum softer. So there's those aspects also as far as what brings it up. The rarity of something, like the rosewood, that's difficult to get. So that raises the price. So all these little factors that come in from the craftsmanship, the types of material, the cost of that material, the volume of that material, and things like what are you losing in that cost. With the Avenger reference, there's a hole in that second piece of, the Titan. There's a hole in that second piece of acrylic and aluminum. We can't take that acrylic and polish it out and make you a little clamp because it's been destroyed. So, but unfortunately, though, I do think a lot of manufacturers, well, that's how the Titan happened. The Titan's our $40,000 table. That only happened because when we released the Avenger reference, the $20,000 flavor, we had customers and distributors. They were like, oh, man, the price. It's like, I'm sorry, guys. I tried. 20 is a fair price. No, it's too cheap. Make this 40. It's like, no. So the Titan was our attempt to make an $80,000 table, and instead it's 40.
Yeah.
And also, when we did our direct drive table, that was very costly because of the research. That's another thing, the research and development. You'll see a lot of cases where a company will try to make their money back on the first 10 models. We like to amortize that over the long thing, the long run of all of it. Like the first Titans were insanely, if we were to just base the price off of the first Titans we made, it should have been $80,000. But from a long-term projection, that's where we come up with 40. If we ended up only selling 5 Titans and we called it a day, then we would have been screwed. But
really, you would have lost money.
Oh yeah. With all this product, there is a point where if we don't hit that, then we made a mistake. We should have done the higher price point. Oh, and also we're really open about all this stuff. So if you ever feel like coming down to the factory and seeing our guys do it and everything, and that's like open for everybody, customers, people. I mean, geez, we've had other turntable manufacturers even buy, which is a little awkward, and but that's another story.
In terms of building these really high-end tables, how close do you think we are to squeezing all the juice out of the possibility of higher quality out of a turntable?
Oh, I think we're already there.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I mean, mainly because, it's not like, we're there. I think more to the diminishing returns is mental because, we've done things. We've done demonstrations and where people be like, oh, that just totally changed everything. Somebody's like, what the fuck are you talking about? For example, our Avenger reference at 20,000. I tell everybody, and if I had a PR person, I'm sure they yell at me. But the Titan, it's more of like if you have $20,000 lying around and you need that extra 2%, then get the Titan. Otherwise, the Avenger reference is doing it. And then you get to the point where they're all good. They're all of these high-end tables and everything else. All of this stuff, they do things right. But it's red wine versus white wine. It's the subjective nature of... best example, which is related but not related, 2 years ago at CES, there was a guy who went to CES. I won't say who because he wants to be a little wacky to be politically correct. And I dialed in the room very well. I was very happy with it. And the PhonoStage guy, he was happy with it. But the person with the speakers, he wasn't happy. And finally I says, okay, you, sit there. You raise your hand when you like it. And I went to the VTA and I raised and lowered it until yes, that's it. Oh, now it's music. And to me, I was like, are you fucking kidding me? To me, it was so bright and harsh. Yeah. But for him, for what he likes, he loved it. So going back to high-end tables, that's what you get at that point. You're just getting, in my humble opinion, a different presentation of a fantastic experience already, be it VPI or any other brand, because there's a lot of fantastic brands out there. There's a lot of brands that should really just close up shop and stop selling snake oil and, listening to the bean counters, but that's another thing.
You were really involved actually in the community off of all the forums, and on Facebook you have a VPI community and all that, but I think that's really cool because you didn't start that group on Facebook, did you?
Oh, that was hilarious. Somebody messaged me saying, Matt, can you please accept me into the I Love My VPI Facebook group? I'm like, what are you talking about? Then I realized, what? I'm not a member. I had to apply to get into the group. I teased the admins and just like, really? And this was cool. They even like, hey, would you like to be an admin? I'm like, I'd rather not.
Yeah.
So for that specific, obviously I run that's the other thing where it's a little different. I personally handle all of the social media. I feel like a lot of companies, be it because of age reasons or just misunderstanding of technology.
Especially in this environment, yeah.
Yeah. I tried a PR person once. Besides the fact he was a total D-bag, it was a complete different idea of what the story he was telling. I was on Pim Fox, I guess this was 4 years ago, and he asked me, Matt, why do you need a $30,000 turntable? And I said, you don't. And you can find this on YouTube where I said, you don't need it, blah, blah, blah. And we had a nice conversation about everything else. I walk off and my PR guy was like, "What the hell? What are you doing? What are you just blah, 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 blah." Like, first, dude, watch your tone. I signed your check. Second, if I said you need a $30,000 turntable, I'm not a manufacturer anymore. I'm an asshole. Because nobody needs a $30,000 table. You need a kidney. You need a lung. You need food. Nobody needs a $30,000 table. I totally veered off. I'm sorry, social media and PR.
No, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
The comment I was going to add is, and the PR people in this industry are wonderful, but I wanted to point out,
of course,
they are usually older than you are.
Yep.
By a couple of years. So to reach out to a lot of these guys, I don't really see them active on Facebook. So I can totally understand where you're coming from because, the PR guys in this industry don't. And look, social media is a very, very tricky, double-edged thing that's going on right now, and obviously there's all this kinds of stuff with Facebook going on.
Yep.
And it's not everybody has all the answer, but the thing that you do that's nice is that you are a representative of the company, and you are contributing on the level of the consumers within these forums. And for somebody to create I Love My VPI Turntable a Facebook group, for you to be in there, I think is just a nice gesture, and barely anybody or no one does that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Outside of a couple of the forums, and people are involved on the forums as well. But
it's easy to get scared off by the forum trolls. And to me, I kind of not embracing them saying, "Hey guys, troll me," but in the sense of, I feel like if someone's mad at me, it's because of a misunderstanding. They don't know me. They don't know the situation, or they don't know what we were dealing with. Recently, there was someone who was like really upset because I didn't get back to him. This person's not on Facebook, not on any social media stuff, had no idea I just had a baby.
yeah,
And then when I said, "Dude, I'm sorry, I missed you. I have a whole office staff. You should have reached out to them. I just gave." Well, okay, I didn't do anything with my wife. I mean, but still, I'm out like with this. And then it was just like this rage melted to, "Oh, I forgot you're a person." And I think the idea of of staying in communication, first, it takes away a lot of potential issues, because that's that reminder of, oh, this isn't Matt Weisfeld or VPI, the faceless company. We're a family company, and I want to stay that way.
Yeah.
And I tell people that when they're in a VPI table, they're in the family, and I do believe in that. I know I can't talk to everybody, but I'm sure as hell going to try. And on the forums, I found that if you greet somebody with negativity or ignoring it, just makes it worse. Like every person that I know of that we've ever like screwed over, it's totally just accident. We missed it, or like, sorry, the guy was out with the flu. Please bug us again. And I like talking to them and putting that face on there. There was one guy who sent me this, internet balls. We all deal with that. I'm sure you've gotten those guys like, "Fuck you." This guy like sent me an email that was a rage fest, like you would not believe. We're just like, dude, life's too short.
yeah.
And long story short, we eventually meet, and he was like, "I'm so sorry, man. You this and that, and thanks for helping me out." And just pick up a phone and give me a call.
Yeah. Actually, to be honest, the little bit of disconnect, I think, from the online world to the real world, and this is both good and bad, is that I've met, I have met trolls or people that project themselves in an angry manner online, almost always, but not always, almost always, just teddy bears in real life.
Yes. This guy who was my dad's arch enemy, who actually comes to this show all the time, when I met, and I teased him about it too, because I met him, and I've always been really friendly with him because I met him, and he's like a grandpa. He's just like, like, "Oh, come here, Gramps, give me a hug." It was just,
Makes you wonder if every meathead you ever saw fighting in a drunken bar at 2 a.m. was really nice online.
Yeah, right? It's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I'll give you a hug.
Yeah.
It's really tough."
I'm having a really hard time right now. So I guess where I was getting to all that in a roundabout way was I did see a post from your thing talking about reviewers.
Yes.
And the scenario that you described was an unfortunate story I was not familiar with or who we were talking about. But do you feel like telling a little bit more about that from your perspective and kind of how, if you're comfortable with that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I think I know which one you're talking about because I try not to rant too often. I'm the kind of person, if something's really bothering me, I got to get it out. I got to get it out or it's going to keep bothering me. What bothers me about, not just reviewers, people in general, when it's misrepresented, and there was is this the one about the tone arm thing?
No, this is about a reviewer who was asking to keep the table.
Yes, that bothers me in the sense.
Being a reviewer, it hit me a little bit closer to home. That's why I don't know the tone arm thing, but if you
well, the first thing was the misrepresentation of stuff. There was that's why I was sure because there was two reviewer-esque moments. The first thing being that if something's being represented as being a $4,000 item, for example, and then just all marketed, and I don't mean from the company itself, I mean from the magazine, the reviewer standpoint, because I feel there's a huge importance of the reviewer because the customer needs that. Not everyone has that chance to preview and develop their own opinion on the spot, so they have to really rely on the voices of the neutral reviewer. Then I'll see stuff where it's just like, oh, that reviewer's not being a reviewer, or just whoever, reporter, let's say, of reporting the news, he's indoctrinating. And that's always bothered me when someone is, then it's turning into, look at this $4,000. And the first thing I'm talking about hit me close to home because it was a direct hit towards me. And I had made the decision not to advertise with this individual. And to me, with advertising, it's good to share the love and everything else, but with all companies, if you advertise with everybody at all times, you'll be broke, So it wasn't a screw you. We're never going to advertise. It was one of those, things are a little, our advertising budget's shot already. Maybe next time. And then there ended up being something about how, well, this could give someone a run for their money. Look at this $4,000 table. Blah 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 blah. And I looked at him like, there's a triplanar tone arm on there. That's a $10,000 tone arm. This isn't a $4,000 table. This is a $14,000 table. What the where it's like you're doing your readers a disservice, where you're directing them towards, look at this $4,000 that table, and now the customer goes to.
So you're saying it was it was unfair comparison. He intentionally used a high-end tone arm to directly negatively affect the review.
Yes, it was. There was no review towards me. It was just kind of like it was more of them just being a promoter more than a source of news. And what threw me was, I'm in this industry. I know what we know what a triplanar arm is, and I was fooled. So now, what about that guy that doesn't know anything? It's just like, wow, what a value! And they walk in there and they do it, and like, there's no arm. I only had $4,000. What do I do? And then all of a sudden they're throwing on a inexpensive Jelco or whatever, and the guy is not getting close to what he was expecting. So that was the first rant, where properly represent it the right way, or / don't have a slant because of inappropriate reasons. The second thing was because there's a turntable that I'm aware of that got this amazing review, and the individual who did the review got this fantastic vacation. Like, it was a blatantly bad thing. Do a fair review, the sense of, and I appreciate when reviewers will even contact, like in my case, where they'll be like, hey, Matt, I had this and this happen. What happened there? And there was one review with a partnership table, and the reviewer called up and said, Matt, there's this and this, and I don't know what to do. I said, well, just write it. Hey, we're going to learn from it. And the idea of, well, you can get a good review, but I got to keep this.
So has that actually been said to you?
Not directly, but in not so many words. Just like, oh, actually, I'm sorry, that actually has been said. Where it's just that they'll keep it forever, kind of thing. It's just like, oh, I'll just keep this and that. And we're okay with, listen, people get busy. I get it. So like we've had reviews, samples out longer than expected. That's fine. Life happens. But when it gets to the point where it's like, hey, dude, we're on like 2-3 years. What's happening? And we had something like that where we missed it. We missed the fact we're like, holy crap, this is still, of course, my wife catches it. Because I'm a disaster with this stuff. And, so that gets caught, and then it turns into what's going on here. And it's just like, well, I figure I'll just, I'll take care of you. You take care of me. Like, well, no, then it's bribery. And that's my thing of that bothers me with any situation where it's just like, oh yeah, just give me make sure I'm on the cover. Here you go. And there was man, this is tough. So I'm trying to be politically correct with it, but
I want a name.
yeah, I know. So to give you an idea, I'm aware of products that have done well on the free table aspect rather than the actual merit. And that's not to say the table wasn't deserving of it without it. And which is, it's such a shame because it devalues a product that is worthy of it.
Here's the scenario that I've heard, and that is much more sinister, I think, than what you're describing. Is the idea that they keep the table, don't open the box.
Yep.
And because then they can sell it as new.
Yep.
That is a slightly more devious thing, because you're putting it in a very nice terms here. Well, they kept it a long time. This is a person who intent from the get-go was never to return it, never opening it, and then writing a fake review. That is a hell of a mentality.
Yep.
Have you ever heard that
Yes,
scenario?
I have.
Has it happened to you?
Not that I know of, at least not during my
Have you?
There was. Okay, again, not saying names. This is like when I was in middle school. So,
Yeah.
But apparently at one of these shows, when my dad saw the guy, like just grabbed him. It was just like, "Are you kidding me? This is what you're gonna do to this industry?" And it's. I like to think it never happens. I'm aware of certain publications or whatnot that have done stuff. I just try to stay neutral and just make a little check of, okay, never sending that guy a product.
Who's your favorite reviewer?
Well, you, of course.
Jeez, that was
That's
the right
the
answer.
easy one.
Boy,
Oh,
this
man.
guy's good. This guy's good. Anything that's going on with your company that you like to share with the class?
So one little final note for the class over here. Turntables and music and sharing it with people is a beautiful thing. But for the love of everything out there, please don't get fooled by the guys jumping on the bandwagon. Because there's nothing worse. And you know what? Companies like you know what? I hung out with the U-Turn Audio guys today. They're awesome. They're doing it out of passion and love.
Yeah.
I hang out with some other guys who are clearly just doing it to make a fast buck, and then they'll be gone. You take a company like Rega, they'll be around even when the bean counters tell them to get out. I mean, there's a certain company that recently started making a turntable and left everybody because the bean counters told them that it's not profitable. That bothers me. And it's just kind of one of those things of, I hate to see a customer get a product and then 5 years later be literally up a creek without a paddle because the company chose that they're not making money. This is music. It should be about passion. It should be about love. And if you're not getting a VPI, please get a company product that will be with you to stand the test of time.
That's awesome, man. Thanks so much.